Hello, and welcome to The Update, where Grants Pass stays informed, engaged, and moving forward together. I'm Aaron Kubik, your city manager. To start off today's episode, we're going to do a quick recap of our past council meeting and provide you an update on the progress with Parker Place Village. This is a program that will provide resting and wraparound services for the unhoused in Grants Pass. And I've got the privilege of being joined today by our mayor, Clint Scherf. Thanks for being here.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I know we had a couple of things, and from my perspective, we had a big item on the meeting last night, and that was the budget. But we also did some ordinance changes too, and love to highlight some of those things.
Yeah. No, it was very important that we finalized and publicly announced our FY27 budget. I mean, that was good. So now the public knows exactly what we're dealing with this coming up year, and we didn't highlight a lot of the challenges, but the public actually knows the scope that we're going to be working under. So that's really good. One of the big highlights from last night was that the city, led by our town attorney, coordinated with police department as well as yourself, went through and kind of shored up and cleaned up some of the language in our ordinances that revolve around our public spaces. There was a number of ordinances we talked about, and we shored up last night in regards to public spaces, defining a lot of the language inside the ordinances, which actually gives the police department and our enforcement more enforceable tools, clearer enforceable tools. So it was really good. So I would encourage people to go back and watch our YouTube and get a little bit more depth on. I don't want to go through every single ordinance because it's kind of cumbersome, but what it really did was just cleaned up the language in regards to trash receptacles, public spaces, resting in public spaces, business nooks and crannies,
activities in the park.
Yep.
And you're right. It was truly a real team effort, and it was great to see our city attorney sitting down with our police officers and really talking to them and talking about the police department with the chief. What kind of tools do you need, and how can we sharpen those tools to make you more effective in the field and to help with what the community has expressed concerns with when it comes to these activities that are and behaviors that are occurring out in the public. And it was a really comprehensive ordinance. And you're right. I think it would take a long time for us to go through just all of the small little code changes that will make a difference for our officers.
Well, it just brings back full circle that language is tools, and so we had to make sure and get the right language in these ordinances. And what we did have a commenter last night from the public that was making a comment that why didn't we do this earlier? And being involved with the homeless situation in Grants Pass, I started my involvement back in 2017 when we had the first initial lawsuit go through.
And that's when you were actually as a council member.
Yeah, I served with the city as a city council member for a couple of years back then. And it's kind of what I stated last night. This is an evolution. These code changes are an evolution of what we've gone through. And the city wanted to make sure that they had full legal stability, standing on solid ground before we actually started doing this. So this is kind of just like I said last night, this is an evolution of the city protecting the community and dealing with its public spaces, basically, is what it comes down to. There would have been no opportunity or avenue for us to change these codes 3, 4, 5 years ago.
No,
not an opening.
Not at all. There's a risk management perspective of it also whenever you look at policy changes and those kind of things. And so that was something I think council was considering along the way.
Yeah, and some things that the public might not know is that councilors as well as myself, as well as you, city manager, as our city attorney, we've been deeply involved in this on the legal aspect of it, meaning that we've been shoulder to shoulder with a lot of the lawyers that actually wrote briefs for our SCOTUS case.
Yeah.
League of Oregon Cities has a number of lawyers that jumped on board on our SCOTUS case and wrote briefs for that. I've had FaceTime, and I know you have had FaceTime with a number of these lawyers. So it's like not like city councilors, myself, or you, or even Stephanie. We're not making any of this stuff up. We are going forward with the legal backing and education that we really needed to. So we're not making any of these stuff off the cuff or anything like that. We're doing this in the proper manner to make sure that the city is secure going forward.
Yeah.
We got a little bit of a brief update on Elk Island's progress with the Parker's Place, and it looks like we are on schedule to open up phase one sometime next week.
So let's talk about that before we get into some of the details on the scheduling opening. Elk Island and the project. Can you give maybe a little background on what is Elk Island and what is the project?
Yeah. Let's talk about let's go back to the initial. We won't go all the way down to the bumpy road of how the council got to this point, but previous council as well as current council worked long and hard to deal with homeless within our public spaces underneath the scrutiny of legal litigation.
Yeah.
Okay. Everything had to be done gingerly and everything had to be done right. Council chose to use the community to develop a community driven solution, which would be a nonprofit coming in, utilizing some funds from the city to build a shelter that could be in place for us permanently, semi-permanently, however you want to talk about it, in regards to allowing people that wanted to rest in our public spaces, allowing them someplace to go underneath the guidance of state legislation HB 3115.
Yeah.
With that, the city council decided to put a grant forth, offer up some money for a nonprofit to come and construct this facility. So one premise that is kind of lost in the weeds in this is, yes, the city granted Elk Island roughly $1.2 million for the construction of a homeless shelter.
Yeah.
If you peel back the onion layers, there was an actual, and you can correct me if I'm wrong in this, there was an opioid lawsuit that came through, and we actually got half of that funding, $600,000 from that. So realistically, the city only had to put about $600,000 of their money in there.
Yeah.
With the same aspect that the city's budgeting almost $350,000 a year for these temporary sites that are across the street from the city hall. So it was kind of those numbers, you might not think they're significant, but I think they're significant to make sure that the city and the community knows that, we just didn't offer up all the money that we possibly could. We actually got some help from some of this, which kind of pulls it back full center. I don't want to really get into the social aspect of homelessness, but there's always a real push, and we all know that there's a drug component, an addiction component to this.
Yes.
And to have some of this shelter funding come from a lawsuit that was directly around the abuse of some of that pharmaceuticals, it's kind of full circle.
The nexus is so
yeah.
So there, it was a great use of those funds.
Yeah, and I think it was the best use of it. So realistically, so the public knows that the city only had to take $600,000 out of the general fund to support the construction of this with Elk Island and the Parker's Place.
I think that's a really good point. And when I've looked at other communities and what type of resources they've put into these type of services, because of the way the community stepped up and the way the city of Grants Pass did this. We're going to be able to have resting sites available to those individuals with wraparound services for a fraction of what other communities have spent.
No, absolutely. And, you also have to take in context that state legislation is driving a lot of this.
Yes.
So the state has basically, if I was to break it down in a synopsis, the state has put legislation forth that does not allow the community to provide community-driven, community-funded solutions to deal with their homeless in their current area. So basically, it's kind of like the small community is forced to work underneath the guidance of the whole state without the necessary funding. So what we've done in Grants Pass, I think, is really kind of, like you said, driving it down to community-driven, community-supported, financially as well as, well, I would say financially. Because we may not have the full backing of our community, but hopefully they can see the forest or the trees that we're definitely we're putting forth the effort to clean up our streets.
Well, and one of the things, there's multiple benefits, I think, of how the city has implemented this, and one is it's providing an opportunity as for us to sharpen our ordinances, to
Hmm.
provide more tools for our officers, and it's also going to be able to allow us to address our resting sites that we currently have on 6th and 8th Street and on 7th Street.
Absolutely, absolutely. So when we talk about having Parker's Place open up next week, we're starting with it's going to be a phased approach to open because
Okay.
logistically, when you look at things, you can only build something so fast in an efficient manner to make sure it's correct and it's done right. Also, you're talking about human beings here. When we're talking about transitioning human beings from one place to the other, there is a transitional period in that point. So, the way the phasing's laid out, I think we're looking at 4 to 5 phases to have this open and full capacity. With phase one starting next week,
Hmm.
we're going to start out with a minimum of 40 units being open next week.
Wow. Okay.
And what that allows us to do is we have 3 temporary sites right now that are funded by the city. A large one on 6th and a small one on 7th next to the police station, and a smaller one adjacent to the 6th and A one.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what we are hoping in this transition period to do is once phase one is open, we will decommission and shut down one of the smallest temporary sites that we have.
Hmm.
And then as phases open up on a weekly basis going forward, then we will basically mold and transition the temporary sites accordingly. Meaning, we may then next shut down the large A and 6th, but then have to reopen the smaller one just to kind of take that capacity in. I think the premise, though, here is we will definitely be leaving 7th Street open for a little bit longer,
Hmm.
meaning that the one that is touching the police department parking lot, overseen by the police department, it's way more shielded from 7th Street than the 6th and A one is.
Yeah.
So it's visually not there as in your face. We will be leaving that one open for a little bit longer, just be for the fact of we understand that we're dealing with human beings and transitioning, so we want to make sure that we have those outlets available. That one, the 7th Street one, has the least impact visually on the community. So,
Yeah.
and it can be, and it is currently overseen by the police department. They open their front door, it's right there. So we will definitely be leaving that one open for a little bit longer. We don't know how long, but just so we know, we're really going to be dealing with the 6 and A, decreasing it, remolding it as these phases open up for Parker's Place.
So let me make sure I've got this straight because this is actually really exciting news. Just to recap, the city started this grant program. We've got Elk Island that's come in here, and they've been gearing up for a while on getting a system in place. It's called Parker's Place Village. We're going to start a phased approach. And that means that I'm just thinking from the community and the optics and what they see is they're going to actually start to see a change in 6 and A. We're going to actually be shutting down those sites and they will ultimately go away once
Correct.
Parker Place is up and running.
Yeah, but like I said, we're talking about human beings, we're talking about
Yeah.
logistics, we're talking about transitional periods. So realistically, it's an ever evolving thing. We're looking at trying to have, I believe, end target deadline would be sometime the beginning of July. We may have Parker's Place up in full capacity running.
Wow, that's exciting.
And with that, if once we have that up and full running, that 6th and A, both the small and the larger sites, those sites can be completely decommissioned, cleaned up, and put to bed. With the caveat that we're going to leave open 7th Street for a little bit longer to see how the transitional period goes. So I think it's a good way. It's been discussed with yourself, with town attorney, with the police department, with fire and rescue to make sure that everybody is kind of working together to have the most empathetic transition as we possibly can. The city's actions, the council's decisions, my guidance, your guidance, Stephanie's guidance, Chief Hensman's guidance is all been kind of put forth in a manner that keeps the city compliant with state statutes, realizing the fact that we are dealing with human beings. So we're approaching everything with the highest level of empathy we possibly can. understanding the parameters financially and logistically that we have with our community-based organizations. Everything has not been done. It's been done with foresight. It's been done with purpose. It hasn't been willy-nilly. So the public may, be a little disgruntled in some aspects and say that we're not working, fast enough and quick enough to get this done. But realistically, since dealing with the first lawsuit since 2017, we're trying to play chess here. We're not playing checkers. We're trying to make sure that we're setting up the city of Grants Pass for success, not failure.
Yeah. And I like the way you've mentioned that we're doing it in a compassionate way and doing it in a way to where Parker's Place will also be successful with opening up their resting sites and providing those wraparound services. And I think Mint is the one that's going to be doing those wraparound services along with Elk Island, who is the one who put the actual project together.
Yeah, and we are entrusting that organization will provide those services. Just to reiterate, the city council, myself, we decided to go forward with this grant to support the construction, the acquisition of the property, the construction of the facility. I personally believe the city shouldn't own and operate any of these facilities. It should be community driven, and that is kind of the approach that the council and the city has taken. So realistically, once we get this thing, the city has put the financial ties into this to support the construction and establishment of this facility with the opportunity for it to be community driven going in forward. So yes, the city will have oversight. The city will continue to monitor and because there's a 5-year timeline on this grant money that we put out there. But it is not up to the city to continue the services and to provide the wraparound services for help. It is going to be community driven and community supported by the nonprofits in the area.
I think that's a really important clarifier there is the city's financial obligation through this program that we initiated was to stand up a facility, to get a facility up and able to run. But we are not going to continue to have a financial obligation to operate the facility. That is all done through community support.
Correct. Basically, what we tried to make sure is that the city wasn't tied to this in perpetuity to continually fund it.
Yeah.
Because we did listen to our constituents and our community members who were not wanting their taxpayer dollars to continually fund this. A lot of the nonprofit organizations in the area, they may pull state funds, they may pull federal funds, but when you look at the dynamics of that, the government already took that tax money away from you. So if these organizations trying to help our community aren't trying to claw that money back to our community, that's what their job is to do. But we felt, myself as well as the council members felt that the city shouldn't be financially tied to owning, operating, and facilitating this. We put forth the avenue. We took down the barriers to allow an organization to build the facility by funding it and halfly funding it through an opioid lawsuit, which was great.
Right.
But what that did is that took those barriers away and allowed that organization to get it off the ground and get it established.
Yeah, that's a key point too, because there's state dollars that are available for wraparound services.
Correct.
But it's sort of a cart before the horse thing. It's like, which way do you go? Those aren't available unless you can show and prove that you've got the capacity to provide those services. And this does provide that.
Yeah, I went.
And opens up grant funding.
I completely educated myself from day one, a year and a half ago, when I started this as mayor. Is the state funding has a caveat. I didn't find any state funding that didn't have this caveat. The caveat being is the state funding couldn't be used to facilitate lease or purchase a piece of property and or construction of that shelter. So all the funds that were available through state as well as federal, from my research, found that there was no avenue to actually start the process. So starting the process was incumbent on city council, the city of Grants Pass, to take that financial burden to get it off the ground, to get it to the next level. And then, those organizations can utilize state and federal funding to, provide the services that are needed in our area.
Yeah, this program and this project really is a great example of a community project where there's so many pieces that come together, and we're utilizing the strength of everyone in order to make something whole.
Yeah, yeah. No, it was incumbent on us to do it. We chose the right path, and I think I always want to be positively optimistic because I want this to succeed. Because, like I say, I come down and visit you in the office. I have an office down here next to yours, and I see the visual impact that we have.
Yeah.
We've seen it for over a year and a half, even further. So, I believe this is going to be hugely beneficial to our community and the growth and development of our business community as well.
Yeah. So, looking forward, is there anything that council is going to be addressing in the future that the community might be interested in?
Yeah, yeah. So the city council, as well as myself, we're definitely continuing on the theme of protecting our community members and cleaning up our streets.
Uh-huh.
So we do have it's been a while to get this on the docket because there's been a lot of research, but the city council is entertaining, researching, establishing a municipal court in the area.
Yes.
Okay. Along with that, we're also going to be having some robust conversations about establishing exclusion zones within our business area, within our downtown center. There's neighboring cities that have exclusion zones. They've been very successful. So we're not starting from scratch where we have lots of models to go off of. But this is another continuation of city driven by the city council and myself to clean up our streets, to make our city safer and more prosperous for our community. So it's just kind of an ongoing, some reasoning why it's coming up now versus not previously is, like I said, everything has been done methodically and thought out to make sure that we didn't do anything before the other thing to make sure that it would jeopardize that thing and, all the things of the things. Really, realistically, it's like everything has its place and timing, and the municipal court and exclusion zones, it is now the opportune time to start that robust conversation to get those ideas hopefully in place and established in the near future.
Well, from a staff perspective, we're really excited about the momentum and the direction where council's going with some of these things. Now, from an outside perspective, constituents and some of our residents might not see, well, where's all the momentum? Where's it happening? It is happening. We're seeing it because we're having to look at drafting ordinances that are going in front of council, doing our homework on a municipal court, and all of this is just, it's exciting. It's exciting to see where we might be able to go and the direction we're sort of headed. And we greatly appreciate your leadership and council's policy direction on making things better in the community.
Yeah, and it just comes back to the full circle too. Is community members may get anxious because government doesn't work very fast. There's a lot of moving parts. There's a lot of things to do, and one thing that you learn as serving your local government is the fact that your local government isn't the end all meet all. We have parameters from the state level. We have parameters from the federal level. So realistically, we're always working inside of a box, inside of a box, inside of a box.
This is true. That's a good analogy.
So sometimes it does take a little bit longer than what you could do in the private sector because you have to acknowledge which box you're working in first and then which box that's working in. So, and we're going I think the term I really want to coin is we're doing this methodically so we do it properly the first time with the highest level of success that we can get out of it. With the same aspect of we have these nice things coming forward, we're not always want to inform the public that we still have growth and development going at the same time. We just had a small presentation about the Allenwood development and all the new housing that's going to be coming up in that area. And I think the whole property was about 8+ acres, but the development's down to about 5 or 6 acres of multifamily. I think there's a small portion of it's going to be single family.
Yep.
But all geared towards not necessarily HUD housing, but lower income housing, a little more medium income housing to get some of the relief off of the availability, maybe get some more stock in the rental areas and stuff like that for our community.
Yeah, we've seen a trend, an upward trend, definitely in the amount of multifamily homes that are being built.
Yep.
With state laws that have changed and everything like that. We're still building single family homes, but we've seen a large amount of increase in multifamily.
No, it comes down to the fact that, you just look outside your window. This is a beautiful place to live. People
Yeah.
want to live here. And so, if we don't have we don't have all the jobs for people, we still got to provide, an inventory of housing. And I think that's what the city is doing. The city's promoting that. The city's trying to help developers get off their feet to get this done, taking down as many barriers as possible. Brings you back full circle as, I started a development task force of private citizens and people within the building industry, real estate, funding development, to go through, sit with our planning department, go through our code to see if we could take down some of those barriers. And they have been, I talked to some of these guys that are on this task force, and they're absolutely elated and excited every time they get done with a session, because whether or not we fully gut our development code and reshape it, it's more of the development and building industry having a voice within the planning department, within the city, and them working together. Like, everybody is very happy. They're pulling down some barriers, and they're all getting an understanding of how the process works and how they can both work together, the private and public sector, to get those barriers to a minimum level so we can build faster and build better.
Yeah, you taking the lead on that task force has been amazing. It has really built good relations with our development community and our planning department.
Yeah, and we've started, yourself and myself have gone, we're starting a liaison with county commissioners. We
Yeah, that's
have
right.
a regular meetings that we're doing, trying to get some coordination and some collaboration with them, which has been solely lacking for the last few years. So, we're trying to tackle everything. We're trying to get out there and do more stuff.
Oh, I'm seeing some great things coming out of this council, and greatly appreciate working with you and you taking the time today to be on the podcast and express the exciting news that's coming through with Parker Place Village. That's going to be exciting to see some movement. So thank you very much. Mm-hmm. Greatly appreciate your time today.
Yeah, thanks for letting me be involved.
You can find this episode and future ones on the city's website and on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. We plan to release new episodes twice a month following council meetings. I'm Aaron Kubik. Thank you for being part of the Grants Pass community and listening to The Update, where Grants Pass stays informed, engaged, and moving forward together.